The fatal shooting of Alex Pretty in Minneapolis this weekend is also reverberating in Washington as Democrats in the Senate say they plan to vote against a spending bill that includes funding for immigration enforcement. New Jersey's two U.S. Senators, Andy Kim and Cory Booker, say they're a no on the bill, which provides billions more for DHS and ICE. It faces a Friday deadline, and if the bill fails to get 60 votes, we could see a partial government shutdown. We spoke with Congressman Rob Menendez late last week before the latest fatal incident in Minnesota after the House just narrowly passed funding for DHS and ICE. Congressman, thank you so much. Welcome, of course. This spending bill, you had a concerted effort along with a lot of other Democrats to block this funding bill for Homeland Security. It did, though, pass. It included basically flat funding, but $10 billion for ICE. But there were a lot of calls for more reforms than the bill included. And yet beyond that, more progressive members of the caucus who said, we're done with reforms. This is beyond repair. It's time to abolish ICE. What's your position on that?
So we voted against the Homeland Security component of the appropriations bills. We've seen what's happening throughout our communities here in New Jersey. I visited Minneapolis last week.
Right.
ICE is out of control. DHS is out of control. There's no accountability. Secretary Noem is not fit for that position. So we did not believe, as you mentioned, that the reforms went far enough. Now, again, we're in the minority, and I felt like our appropriators did a good job of getting concessions from the Republicans, who have no desire to have accountability or oversight of DHS. But overall, when you're looking at the situation throughout the country, it didn't go far enough. And ICE has been given an immense amount of money by Republicans in the House and the Senate. And our view is they don't need any more money. They should have less funding, and there needs to be accountability. If DHS is unwilling to do those things, then we have to think about a complete restructuring of ICE.
So they need more accountability. They don't need more money, but they don't need to be abolished.
I think with what this administration is doing, there's irreparable damage that's been done. We do have immigration laws. We need to enforce those immigration laws. ICE is not the entity to do that any longer. They've diminished the work that they have done. They've expanded it, and you've seen abuses throughout our country. We need to reimagine how we enforce our immigration laws. We need to re-envision the vehicle and entity that does that. It can't be ICE.
There were also obviously 7 Democrats who voted in favor of the spending bill, and their argument, some, was basically, if we vote no, it gives the federal government even more power to shut down government and do with it what they will. What do you think about that and the leverage, if any, that's left for Democrats in Congress?
Well, one is the American people are on our side on this. They didn't start there, right? They gave the president the benefit of the doubt when they elected him. But what they've seen from him taking office for his second term was beyond what he had sold the American people on the campaign trail. And every day that people have a greater understanding of what this administration is doing, they are increasingly in opposition to it. So the American people are on our side. And when I say on our side, we're talking about U.S. citizens being shot in broad daylight. Renee was a mother. We're seeing 5-year-olds taken after they're being dropped off from school, being used as bait to try to lure people out of their house. And that is un-American. It is not what people thought they were getting when they elected Donald Trump. And so people are increasingly on our side, which is that there needs to be accountability, there needs to be reform. This is un-American. And I do believe Republicans are seeing that and feeling that pressure. And they should, in the majority party, take more action, more accountability of ICE and DHS.
Well, and you went to Minneapolis for a field hearing called by your colleagues there. But there have been recent raids in New Jersey that have also caught national headlines and, of course, a lot of outrage from communities in here. Some incidents involving children as well. I wonder what you heard there and whether it reflected what constituents here are saying.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, what's happening in Minneapolis is not happening here in New Jersey, because that is using the federal government to go to war with its own citizens. What you're seeing in the streets of Minneapolis, the Twin Cities and beyond. There's a lot of similarities. Now, at the beginning of the administration, it was, what are we doing for our immigrant communities? Now I say, what are we doing for our communities? Because you're seeing U.S. citizens who are impacted. You're seeing black and brown people who are being targeted by ICE. This is not targeted enforcement of violent criminals, and the ICE's own numbers reflect this. Over 70% of people that are currently being held in ICE detention here in New Jersey have no criminal records. The people that have violent criminal records are single-digit percentage, right? So we know that this has taken on and become a huge problem for our country, for our communities. One of the things that really stuck out to me when I was in Minneapolis was one of the witnesses, a U.S. citizen, was apprehended by ICE because she was sort of doing organized protests to alert her neighbors that ICE was in the neighborhood. They took her into an ICE facility. When she got there, she saw sections of the ICE facility that were labeled for U.S. citizens. That's the environment that we're in. And from the time that we were outside Delaney Hall to present day, what I've been trying to tell people is this will arrive at your doorstep. I don't want it to, but it will. We need to speak out against it across the country, across all of our communities.
Well, the very example of that, the facility in Roxbury that folks are actively protesting now, the federal government says this is nothing definite, but it is on a list. And we do know, confirmed, that ICE met with officials there on the ground in Roxbury. I mean, what, if anything, what power does Congress have to prevent these centers from coming into communities, even communities that are vehemently opposed to it?
Yeah, so one is there needs to be accountability for all of these private detention centers. And something that's extremely problematic about Roxbury is that it's a warehouse facility.
Which you had amendments
Correct.
that would have addressed that. Those
Correct.
amendments, though, were blocked.
Correct. So Republicans blocked our amendment. So one of the amendments, we thought it was relatively straightforward. In our view, it was a good faith effort for Republicans to say, you are right that we need to do more oversight reform of ICE. They blocked it. But all that it would have done is said, you cannot take warehouses, which were never intended to hold individuals, right, and use it to detain individuals. That's it. Right? And they blocked it. Now, we've seen at the Elizabeth Detention Center, which was a former warehouse factory, the conditions there, right? Especially in the weather that we have now, freezing cold temperature. We know that there are problems with the drinking water at Delaney Hall. These places are problematic. And when you have people who are not criminals, when you have people who have been going through our immigration process, either through asylum or TPS or parole, who are being picked up and taken there, many of whom who have been here for over 15 years, the question asked is, do you want your neighbors to be put in a warehouse held by this version of ICE? I think most people would say no.
Well, and so let me ask you, Governor Murphy on his way out the door has caught quite a bit of heat from immigrant advocates in particular about that trio of immigrant protection bills, two of which he pocket vetoed, which would have provided a little more guardrails in that sense. What was your reaction to his decision to do that, and have you talked at all with Governor Sherrill about it?
Yeah, so I know Governor Murphy's heart is in the right place, and he has done an immense amount for our communities and for our immigrant communities. My disappointment is that there were technical concerns that they weren't addressed earlier in the process, right? We knew that these bills were moving through the state legislature. They've been talked about for months. If there were any technical concerns, I wish they had resolved them before they passed out of the legislature.
Which the bill sponsors said as well.
So they did. And so my view is we see what this administration is doing, right? ICE recently, there was a memo about warrantless raids of homes. If our concern is the legal treatment of bills that protect our communities, we have to take that fight on. We have to take risk because we see what's happening when we don't do anything. Now, one of the three passed, that's great. I know the legislature is going to go back to work on the other two. We're also seeing things like Jersey City. Earlier today, Mayor Solomon put out an executive order that will have the city be more protective of our immigrant communities and make sure the city works for its residents. We need everyone at the local level, county level, state level, federal level, to do everything that we can to push back against this administration. In New Jersey, I think we're leading the way. There's more to do, and I look forward to working with Governor Sherrill and her administration to do that.
And certainly she set that tone both in her inaugural speech, but also she's been on quite a few cable news shows in the last couple of days where she's come out swinging. I wonder if that concerns you at all, knowing how the federal administration tends to view adversaries or folks who speak in adversarial ways about the president, and whether that could do other harm.
Well, listen, I don't think they should view it as adversarial. We're standing up for our communities. We're standing up for what we believe in. Anyone that's in elective office right now has to be clear in what they envision for our communities, for our state. And I'm proud to stand with Governor Sherrill and so many of my colleagues, including Congresswoman McIver. Talk about someone who's put it all on the line to protect her constituents and to fight for the right things, facing 17 years because of this rogue administration. So we all have to work together. I don't think we can be afraid of a fight. I always tell people you don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry, and you don't make decisions out of fear. And in this moment, we can't make decisions out of fear. We have to go straight to where the fight is. And if the administration wants to push back, we're Jersey, and I'm ready for that fight.
Congressman Rob Menendez, thank you so much for coming in. Thanks for your insight. Appreciate it.
Always great being with you.